In this Excel project, I'm going to demonstrate how to use pivot table and dashboard to display a set of data, and how are they related. Pivot tables are powerful Excel tools that help to extract and rearrange large amounts of data in a more meaningful way. On the other hand, dashboard allow us to see data visually, which is easier for people to see how different data are related. The data I found is about the graduation rates of different races among different colleges and universities, and also the total cost per student, FTE, in 2013. In the data Excel sheet, there are 3 different school systems, and we can see all the data are displayed in 3 different columns. The first column is college name. There are 31 selected schools. The second column is system, which include CUNY system, SUNY system, and not in any system. Column C to F shows percentage of graduation rate for each race, including white, black, Hispanic, and Asian. These 4 groups are the majority race in these schools. The last column is the total cost per student, which is a measurement of instructional workload used for state budgeting, facility planning, and local resource allocation decision. So now let's go to second Excel sheet. I use pivot table to show the top 10 college and university with the highest cost per student. So on the pivot table field, I drag school name to the row section and the total cost per student to the value section. And for the total cost per student, I change the field setting to display in average. So on the pivot table, I filter to show the top 10 schools with the highest cost. Now let's go to sheet 3. It is about the average of total cost per student in each system. As I mentioned before, in this data set, we are looking at 3 different systems. In the pivot table field, I drag system to the rows and total cost per student to values and displace it in average. So for the table, we see that the average total cost per student for CUNY is the lowest, which is $15,354. And the cost for not in any system is the highest, which is $45,044.7. The average of all 3 systems is $19,606. Also, I create a slicer to filter pivot table data. So I click on the pivot table and go to the Analyze tab and click Insert Slicer. The slicers is based on college name. As we can see in the pivot table, we only can see the average cost for each system. But if we want to see the cost for each individual school, we can use the slicer to show us the cost for each school. We can click on any school and we will see the cost. For example, like this, we see the City University of New York system cost. So now let's go to sheet 4. Sheet 4 is about the percentage of graduation rate for different races in each college and university. I create the pivot table by dragging the system and college name to row, and white, black, Hispanic, and Asian to value section, and displays them in max. So when we look at column A, we see lists of all colleges and universities, which are grouped according to the system. Column B, C, D, and E shows the percentage of graduation for each race. For example, in cell B4, 65% is the highest graduation rate for white students in CUNY, and it belongs to Baruch College. In cell B14, 85% is the highest graduation rate for white student that does not belong to any system, which is from the United States Military Academy. So now let's look at sheet 5. The pivot table I create is about the average of graduation rates in different systems. I drag system to the row and Black, White, Hispanic, Asian to the value section and displace them in average. For example, the cell C6 represents the average graduation rate of Black students in SUNY. In the last row, we can see the average of all three systems. Okay, finally, in the last sheet, I create dashboard to show each pivot table visually. The first one is a 3D column bar. We see that the 10 schools with the highest cost. The height of the bar represents the cost per student. In this graph, we can see that the United States Military Academy is the most expensive college because it has the highest bar shows in the graph. And when we go to the second graph, the second graph is a cluster bar graph that shows the average cost per student in each system. As we can see, there's 3 bars, and then we can see the cost, the dollars of each system. The third graph is a stacked column bar graph that shows percentage of each race in different schools. As we can see, the different color of the bar represents different group of students. For example, the yellow bar represents the Asian population. The length of the graph indicates the percentage of each race. And also, I create the slicer to filter data according to different systems. So if I click on CUNY system, it will only show the CUNY school data information. In this way, we can filter information to displace information that we want to see only. So it would be better when we look at the graph. It's more clear. Finally, the last graph is a 3D cluster column graph that shows average rates in each system. And the slicers here can filter data according to the system. So if I click SUNY, we will only see SUNY data. So here comes to the end of my project. I hope you guys will like it and enjoy.